After 1,000 years of peace, aliens declare war, and humans just laugh, reaches its pivotal moment when Ambassador Elena Hart's unexpected laughter echoes through the crystal amphitheater, silencing all species present. She delivers a chilling truth. Attack one human world, and you won't face a unified fleet. You'll create 10,000 responses, including those who will never stop hunting you. The grand forum of Aloria Prime shimmered under the light of twin suns, its crystal amphitheater refracting prismatic patterns across the assembly of delegates. Ambassador Elena Hart of Earth paused at the entrance, taking in the majesty of the interstellar Concord's capital. 1,001 years of peace had transformed this neutral world into a testament to cooperation, living architecture that sang with bioluminescent harmonies, gravity-defying spires that housed representatives from over 200 species, and at its center, the forum itself, where the most critical galactic matters found resolution. Elena smoothed her formal diplomatic attire, a deep blue suit with silver accents representing Earth's oceans and atmosphere, and adjusted the translator pendant at her throat. Her short salt and pepper hair framed a face marked by laugh lines and piercing hazel eyes that had witnessed more interspecies negotiations than perhaps any living human. At 58, she was considered young for her position, but 2 decades in the diplomatic corps had earned her this ambassadorship. "Ambassador Hart," came a reedy voice from behind. "A moment, please." Elena turned to find Zorix hurrying toward her, his four-limbed gait uneven, with apparent anxiety. The Lurani xenopsychologist's translucent skin flushed with stress indicators, pulses of amber light that traveled visibly through his neural pathways. "Zorix," she smiled warmly. "You seem troubled. Your bioluminescence is practically shouting at me." The Lurani's mouthparts twitched in what Elena recognized as their equivalent of a grimace. "Unusual activity among several delegations. My scanners indicate elevated hormonal signatures across multiple species, particularly the Dravan contingent." Elena's smile faded slightly. The Dravans were notoriously uncomfortable with extended periods of peace. Though they had honored the Great Accord for a millennium, their warrior culture had merely adapted rather than transformed. Their lead representative, Admiral Kroll, made no secret of his belief that perpetual readiness for conflict was the only true security. "I'll speak with Admiral Kroll," Elena said. "Perhaps he's simply received news from their home systems." "That would be advisable," Zorix agreed, his epidermis settling into a calmer blue hue. "The council convenes in 30 minutes. I would prefer all parties be centered." Elena nodded and made her way through the forum's curving corridors, acknowledging various delegates with practiced diplomatic gestures, a slight bow to the methane-breathing Voltar, palm-up greetings to the telepathic Ildari, and careful eye contact with the hierarchy-obsessed Thralians. The rich tapestry of galactic civilization surrounded her, each species bringing unique perspectives that had, somehow, forged a millennium of cooperation. She found Admiral Kroll near the central refreshment area, his massive frame easily twice her height. The Dravan's scaly skin was deep crimson, a sign of agitation in his species, and the ceremonial battle scars that adorned his face seemed more pronounced under the forum's lighting. "Admiral!" Elena approached directly, knowing Dravans despised conversational preambles. "Zorix informs me you're troubled." Kroll's vertical pupils narrowed as he regarded her. Humans, always so quick to interpret emotional states. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. "I am not troubled, Ambassador Hart. I am alert. There is a difference." "Alert to what? Exactly?" Elena kept her tone light but her gaze steady. The Admiral's massive hand twitched toward the holoprojector at his belt. A gesture Elena had learned indicated restraint among his kind. "The Hive Collective requested an emergency session. They've been in isolation for months, refusing all diplomatic communications." Elena felt a flicker of genuine concern. The collective, a Gestalt consciousness species that operated as a single entity across millions of individual bodies, had been among the most steadfast advocates for peace in the Concord's history. Their withdrawal was unprecedented. "Did they provide an agenda?" she asked. "Only that it concerns humanity," Kroll said, his tone suddenly careful. "Specifically." Before Elena could respond, the forum's chimes resonated throughout the structure. The council was convening early. Exchanging a glance with Kroll, they moved swiftly toward the central chamber, joining the flow of diverse delegates streaming in from all corridors. The amphitheater hummed with tension as representatives settled into their designated sections. Above them, energy banners representing each member species rippled in simulated breezes, Earth's azure and green standard hanging between the crimson spirals of the Dravans and the geometric patterns of the Lurani. Elena took her seat in the human section, nodding to her staff already in position. Captain Marcus Rourke, her military attaché, leaned close. "Something's off," he murmured. Security protocols were elevated without notification. The collective arrived with twice their usual delegation. Elena's eyes found the collective's representatives, dozens of identical humanoid forms with membranous skin that pulsed with synchronized light patterns, normally distributed throughout the chamber to symbolize their integration with all species. Today they had clustered together in rigid formation. The Supreme Council, 12 elder representatives chosen from the founding species, materialized on the elevated platform. Their chairperson, a venerable Ildari whose silver-threaded robes marked centuries of service, raised gnarled hands for silence. "Delegates of the Concord," the chairperson's voice amplified throughout the chamber, "we convene at the request of the Hive Collective, who claim matters of existential urgency." A ripple of murmurs spread through the assembly as a single member of the collective floated forward, its hover technology allowing it to ascend to the speaker's position. Its skin pulsed with deep red and violet patterns, emotional indicators Elena had never observed in their kind before. For 1,001 years, the collective's harmonic voice resonated. "We have maintained the Great Accord. We have shared technologies, resources, and knowledge. We have protected one another and grown together." The being paused, its membrane fluctuating rapidly. "Today, that ends." The chamber fell utterly silent. "Humanity," the collective continued, "has been observed and evaluated for the duration of the Accord. While outwardly compliant with peace, they remain fundamentally incompatible with cosmic harmony. Their chaotic expansion, their unpredictable innovations, their refusal to submit individual will to collective benefit, all pose an existential threat to ordered civilization." Elena sat perfectly still, her face betraying nothing while her mind raced. This was not merely a complaint or a petition for sanctions. This was building towards something unprecedented. "Therefore," the collective's voice amplified, "by ancient right predating the Accord itself, we formally declare a state of war against humanity and all its allied systems." The chamber erupted. Delegates leapt to their feet, translation devices struggling with the volume of simultaneous outbursts. Energy barriers shimmered into existence around each delegation section, a security measure Elena hadn't seen activated in her lifetime. Through the chaos, Elena saw Admiral Kroll's hand move decisively to his belt, fingers dancing across his projector's defense grid. Around the chamber, other militaristic species were doing the same, assessing threats, calculating alliances, reactivating dormant protocols. The chairperson's amplified voice cut through the din. "Order! The Conquered will have order!" As the chaos subsided, the collective speaker pulsed with intensity. "We do not take this action lightly. For centuries, we have compiled evidence." With a gesture, holographic displays materialized throughout the chamber, showing human settlements across hundreds of worlds. Unplanned, unregulated, unstoppable. Their pattern is clear. Another gesture, and the displays shifted to show human technological developments. Faster-than-light innovations, atmospheric manipulation systems, genetic adaptations. Each advancement occurs without consensus, without proper evaluation of consequences. They call it progress. We call it existential recklessness. With a final gesture, the displays transformed to reveal something that drew gasps from across the chamber. Massive orbital platforms surrounding the collective's home system, bristling with weapons arrays that had clearly been developed and constructed in secret. We have prepared. We have unified other concerned species. The collective gestured to several delegations who remained seated while others stood in outrage. The time for discussion has passed. Humanity must be contained, by force if necessary, before their chaos engulfs us all. Elena felt Captain Rourke tense beside her, his hand moving toward his communication device. She placed her fingers lightly on his wrist, stopping him. Around them, the human delegation waited, all eyes on her. The chairperson spoke again, voice heavy with shock. Ambassador Hart, humanity has been directly addressed and accused. You may respond. Every eye, sensory organ, and scanner in the massive chamber turned toward Elena as she rose slowly from her seat. The tension was palpable. Species that had maintained peace for a millennium now balanced on the precipice of conflict. Elena walked unhurriedly to the central speaker's position, her steps measured and calm. She could feel Zorix's scanners tracking her vitals, could see Admiral Kroll's posture shift from defensive to analytical. The chamber held its collective breath. She reached the platform and stood silent for 3 heartbeats, surveying the assembled delegations. Then, with deliberate movements, she deactivated her translator pendant's diplomatic filter, the device that normally smoothed emotional inflections to prevent misunderstandings. When she finally spoke, her natural voice carried a warmth and confidence that translation technology usually flattened. I would like to request a 5-minute clarification window, she said simply, to explain the human perspective, through rhetoric, not weapons. The chairperson conferred briefly with the council before nodding. Granted, Ambassador, 5 minutes. Elena nodded her thanks, then tapped her compad. Captain Rourke, please join me. As her military attaché made his way forward, Elena initiated the chamber's historical archives. Holographic displays shimmered into existence, showing Earth's ancient history, brutal wars, environmental devastation, civilizations rising and falling. The collective has called our diversity chaos, Elena began, her voice clear and unwavering. But chaos saved us. She gestured to the displays, which shifted to show Earth's unification, the first global climate accords, international space initiatives, the birth of unified governance. Humanity nearly destroyed itself countless times, she continued. We fought ourselves to the brink of extinction over resources, ideologies, misunderstandings. We poisoned our world, hunted species to oblivion, turned science toward destruction. The displays shifted again, showing early human colonies on Mars, Europa, Titan, struggling outposts battling harsh environments. And then we looked up. We stepped outward, not as a unified whole with a single purpose, but as thousands of competing, collaborating, conflicting groups. Some sought profit, others sought knowledge. Many sought merely to survive. The collective speaker pulsed with irritation. This history is known. It demonstrates our point. Uncoordinated expansion driven by individual impulse, rather than collective wisdom. Elena smiled slightly. Indeed. And that uncoordinated expansion saved us when the Nix blight consumed the Proxima colonies. The displays showed the devastating plague that had swept through humanity's first extrasolar settlements, a biological catastrophe that had adapted to defeat every standardized treatment. Had we followed a single approach, a unified response, Elena continued. Humanity would have perished. Instead, 53 different research teams tried 53 different approaches. 49 failed, but 4 succeeded, each in different ways, each offering unique insights that, together, created the blight protocols now used by every species in the Concord. She gestured, and the displays shifted to show the first joint human-alien mission. The Concord's inaugural peacekeeping force dispatched to mediate the Betelgeuse resource dispute. When we joined the galactic community, we brought this same diversity of thought, sometimes inefficient, sometimes contentious, always adaptive. The collective interrupted again, its bioluminescence pulsing rapidly. Your justifications are irrelevant. The evidence is clear, it gestured, and the displays showed a scrolling star map of human settlements. Hundreds, then thousands of points of light spreading across multiple spiral arms. Unplanned, unregulated, unstoppable. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Elena could see many species representatives nodding in agreement, their own expansions having been carefully managed through Concord oversight committees and centuries-long approval processes. Captain Rourke stepped forward, his military bearing evident despite his diplomatic attire. With respect, he addressed the chamber. The collective presents expansion without context. At Elena's nod, he activated his own data stream. The displays shifted to show resource distribution across human space, mining operations, agricultural worlds, research stations, and trade hubs interconnected in complex networks. Human expansion follows need, not conquest, Rourke explained. When resources deplete in one system, we develop another. When populations grow beyond comfortable capacity, we establish new colonies. When research requires specific conditions, we build specialized facilities. Elena noticed Zorak's nearly collapse in his seat, overwhelmed by the emotional currents sweeping through the chamber. The Lurani's sensory apparatus was designed to monitor individual psychological states, not the collective anxiety of hundreds of species simultaneously contemplating war. She caught his eye and offered a reassuring nod, trying to convey confidence through the simple gesture. His skin tone steadied slightly in response. The collective speaks of weapons, Elena continued, redirecting attention to the orbital platforms displayed earlier. Let us speak plainly of weapons, Captain? Rourke nodded and accessed classified human defense archives. New displays materialized, showing Earth's substantial military capabilities, orbital defense grids, fleet formations, planetary shield technologies. A shock rippled through the chamber. Many species had assumed humans maintained only token forces in keeping with the Accord's defense limitations. We have never hidden our capabilities, Elena stated firmly. All of this has been registered with Concord Defense Oversight. The difference is that we distributed our defenses rather than concentrating them. We maintained readiness without aggression. She looked directly at the collective. Unlike some, who built secret armaments while preaching absolute pacifism, Admiral Kroll rose from his seat, his massive frame drawing all eyes. The human speaks truth, his rumbling voice declared. The Dravan Empire has maintained defense intelligence on all conquered species since the Accord signing. Human military capacity has remained proportional and distributed, exactly as reported to oversight committees. Elena nodded her thanks to the Admiral, noting the shift in the chamber's mood. Kroll's endorsement carried significant weight, coming from a species known for both military prowess and blunt honesty. The collective accuses us of existential recklessness, Elena continued. Yet, which is more reckless? Maintaining transparent, distributed defenses while pursuing diverse avenues of development, or secretly constructing massive weapons platforms while presenting a false face of absolute pacifism? The collective speaker pulsed with irregular patterns, a sign of discomfort. Our preparations were necessary precisely because of human unpredictability. Your chaotic nature makes you dangerous. even without malicious intent. Elena spread her hands in an open gesture. And that brings us to the heart of this matter. You fear what you cannot predict. You fear what you cannot control. She stepped closer to the collective's representative, her expression serious, but not threatening. For a millennium, the Concord has thrived not despite our differences, but because of them. The Ildari bring empathic insight. The Dravans bring strategic caution. The Voltar bring mathematical precision. Humans bring adaptability and innovation. Around the chamber, Elena could see delegates processing her words. Some nodded in agreement. Others remained skeptical, but all were engaged. If humans fall, she said quietly, yet clearly enough for all to hear, all will suffer, not because we are superior, but because we are different, because we add something to the galactic tapestry that no other species provides. She turned to address the entire assembly. The collective proposes war as a solution to unpredictability, but consider what war with humanity would actually mean. Elena caught Zorix's eye again. The xenopsychologist had steadied himself and was monitoring the emotional patterns of the delegates with renewed focus. His skin showed the blue-green pattern of intense concentration. Admiral Kroll, Elena called. From a purely military perspective, what would war between the collective and humanity entail? The Dravan's expression showed grudging respect as he rose again. Protracted, devastating. The collective possesses superior concentrated firepower and unified command. Humanity possesses superior tactical flexibility and distributed resilience. He paused, his crimson scales shifting slightly. Neither could achieve quick victory. Both would suffer immensely. And the conquered? Elena prompted. Kroll's massive shoulders straightened. Would not survive. Forced choice of allies would fracture the very foundation of our thousand-year peace. Trade would collapse. Technological cooperation would end. Resources would be diverted to warfare. His voice lowered. The conquered would be destroyed, not by the victor, but by the conflict itself. Elena nodded her thanks, then turned back to the collective. Is this truly your intention, to end a millennium of prosperity over fear of unpredictability? The collective pulsed with stubborn patterns. If necessary, chaos cannot be permitted to overtake order. The long-term stability of galactic civilization depends on predictable, managed development. Elena's 5 minutes had nearly expired. The chamber waited in tense silence for her final response. She took a deep breath, considering her next words carefully. Then, to the shock of the assembly, she laughed. It wasn't a nervous chuckle or a diplomatic titter. It was a full, genuine laugh, the kind that comes from deep understanding of an absurd situation. The sound rang through the crystal amphitheater, clear and startling after such tense discourse. The chamber fell completely silent. You really think you can conquer us? Elena asked, her voice still carrying traces of amusement. After a millennium of forging peace from our own blood? She stepped forward, her demeanor shifting to something older and more primal than diplomatic poise. Humanity evolved as persistence predators. Admiral Kroll, do you know what that means? The Dravan's expression showed he did. For those who don't, Elena continued, her voice taking on an edge. It means we didn't evolve to kill with overwhelming force or superior weapons. We evolved to pursue, to endure, to outlast. Before we had technology, we would chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion, even if the hunt took days. She swept her gaze across the chamber. We carried this same trait into war, into exploration, into every challenge we've faced. Elena's voice hardened further. Strike one human world, and you won't face a unified defense fleet arriving in perfect formation. You'll face 10,000 separate responses from 10,000 directions. Some will negotiate. Some will flee. Some will surrender. Her eyes narrowed. And some will never, ever stop hunting you. The collective's bioluminescence shifted to patterns indicating shock. Other delegates exchanged horrified glances. "You fear our chaos?" Elena's voice softened slightly. "You should, because in declaring war, you would do the one thing 1,000 years of peace never managed." She paused. "You would give us a single purpose." The chamber remained frozen in silence. Then, unexpectedly, a slow, deliberate clapping began. Admiral Kroll, his massive hands creating thunderous applause, had risen to his feet. One by one, other delegates joined. First the militaristic species who understood the truth in Elena's warning. Then the diplomatic corps who recognized the skilled rhetoric. And finally even species known for their caution and neutrality. The applause swelled, echoing through the crystal dome. Elena stood calmly at the center, neither encouraging nor discouraging the response. Only the collective and its closest allies remained seated, their bioluminescence pulsing with confusion and reassessment. The chairperson raised gnarled hands for order. As the chamber quieted, the ancient Ildari's silver-threaded robes shimmered in the ambient light. "The collective has made serious accusations and declarations," the chairperson stated. "Ambassador Hart has responded with equal seriousness. I propose the Supreme Council convene in private session to assess these developments, while delegations consult with their governments." Nods of agreement spread throughout the chamber. Elena returned to her seat as the council members departed for their private chambers, their holographic avatars dissolving as they reconnected to their home worlds for emergency consultations. Captain Rourke leaned close. "That was either brilliant or reckless, Madam Ambassador." Elena's eyes remained on the collective delegation, which had huddled into tight formation, their bodies pulsing with synchronized communication patterns. "Sometimes there's no difference, Captain." Throughout the forum, delegates broke into urgent discussions. Some species were already evacuating non-essential personnel from the station, while others were reconfiguring mining drones into makeshift defensive turrets. The possibility of war, after a millennium of peace, had shattered assumptions across the conquered. Zorix made his way to the human section, his skin cycling through stress patterns. "Ambassador," he said urgently, "my scanners indicate severe perturbation across multiple species. The Thralians are already discussing neutrality pacts. The Voltar are calculating casualty projections." Elena nodded. "And the collective?" "Uncertain," Zorix admitted. "Their Gestalt consciousness creates interference patterns my equipment cannot fully penetrate, but they appear to be in internal dispute." Admiral Kroll approached next, his massive frame drawing anxious glances from smaller species. "Human," he addressed Elena directly. "Your confidence is unnerving." Elena smiled slightly. "Coming from a Dravan, I'll take that as high praise." The Admiral's scaled face remained stern. "It was not entirely praise. You spoke of persistence hunting, of never stopping. These are warrior virtues my people understand." He lowered his voice. "But they are also the virtues that nearly destroyed your own world, many times over." "True," Elena acknowledged. "That's why we need the Concord as much as it needs us. Balance, Admiral. Your people provide the caution our enthusiasm sometimes lacks. The Ildari provide the empathy our determination sometimes bypasses." Kroll's vertical pupils narrowed thoughtfully. "And what do the Lurani provide?" he asked, glancing at Zorix. "Perspective," Elena replied simply. "The ability to see beyond immediate tactical concerns to psychological undercurrents." Before Kroll could respond, the chamber's lighting shifted to signal the council's return. Delegates hurried back to their positions as the 12 elder representatives rematerialized on the elevated platform. The chairperson addressed the assembly. "The Supreme Council has conferred both internally and with our respective governments. Additionally, we have received urgent communications from 17 member species not present at today's session." The ancient Ildari's expression was grave. "By unanimous decision, we reject the collective's declaration of war as contrary to the fundamental principles of the Concord. We call upon the collective to withdraw their declaration and submit to weapons inspections as required by the original accord. The collective's speaker floated forward again, its bioluminescence now showing patterns of restraint. The Council oversteps. The right to declare war predates the accord and cannot be nullified by procedural objections. Not procedural objections, the chairperson corrected. Substantive ones. You have presented fears, not violations. You have demonstrated capability, not aggression. And you have constructed secret weapons in direct contravention of the transparency requirements you yourself helped draft a millennium ago. Murmurs of agreement spread through the chamber. The collective pulsed with defiance. We maintain our position. Humanity represents an unacceptable existential risk. Elena rose from her seat. Chairperson, I request permission to propose a compromise. After a brief consultation with the council, the chairperson nodded. Proceed, Ambassador Hart. Elena moved to the central platform once more. I propose a 2-day summit to address the collective's concerns and the concerns of any other species who share their perspective. Not to dismiss these fears, but to examine them seriously and develop concrete protocols to address them. She looked directly at the collective. You fear unplanned expansion? Let us establish clearer notification requirements for new settlements. You worry about technological risks? Let us enhance the Concord's assessment frameworks. You see threat in our diversity? Let us demonstrate how it strengthens rather than weakens galactic stability. The collective pulsed with uncertainty. Words, promises, these have been offered before. Then, let us move beyond words. Elena responded. As a gesture of good faith, humanity will immediately establish planetary stewardship councils on all frontier worlds, joint governance bodies including representatives from concerned conquered species. She glanced at Captain Rourke, who nodded confirmation after checking his communication device. Earth's government had evidently authorized this significant concession during the Council's recess. Additionally, Elena continued, we will support comprehensive reform of the Concord's expansion protocols, technological review processes, and defense transparency requirements, applying equally to all member species. She looked pointedly at the collective, including mandatory disclosure and oversight of all weapons platforms, regardless of historical claims or special status. The chamber buzzed with discussion. Elena had simultaneously offered a substantive compromise, while subtly highlighting the collective's hypocrisy in secret weapons development. The collective's representatives pulsed with rapid communication patterns, clearly engaged in internal debate. After several tense moments, their speaker addressed the chamber again. We will consider participation in such a summit, it stated carefully, provided discussions include substantive measures, not merely diplomatic platitudes. The chairperson nodded. Then it is decided. The Council declares a 2-day recess for this emergency summit. The collective's war declaration is suspended pending these discussions. The ancient Ildari fixed the collective with a stern gaze. And the collective will immediately provide full access to all defensive installations for Concord inspection teams. For a moment, it seemed the collective might refuse. Their representatives pulsed with patterns suggesting resistance. But finally, their speaker inclined its head in acquiescence. Agreed. But we maintain our underlying concerns. If the summit fails to produce adequate safeguards, our position remains unchanged. With that conditional acceptance, the tension in the chamber noticeably decreased. The chairperson formally adjourned the session, and delegates began dispersing, many heading directly to communication centers to update their governments on the unexpected developments. Elena found herself surrounded by her staff, all speaking at once about logistics, political implications, and security concerns. She raised a hand for silence. Captain Rourke, coordinate with Earth and all human colonies. I want settlement representatives at this summit, especially from frontier worlds. Lieutenant Patel, prepare comprehensive data on human expansion patterns for the past century, growth rates, resource utilization, ecological impacts, everything. As her team dispersed to their tasks, Elena noticed Zorix standing nearby, his skin showing exhaustion patterns after the emotional intensity of the session. "You look like you need a drink," she said with a gentle smile. The Lorani's mouthparts twitched in what she recognized as wry amusement. "My species metabolizes alcohol differently than yours, Ambassador. But yes, I could use neural relaxation." Elena gestured toward one of the forum's quieter lounges. "Join me. I could use your insights on how different species responded today, especially the collective." As they walked, Zorix's epidermis slowly shifted to calmer hues. "Your laughter was unexpected," he noted. "My scanners registered shock across 93% of delegates." "Sometimes the unexpected is exactly what's needed," Elena replied. The collective built their entire case around humanity being chaotic and unpredictable. I simply confirmed their accusation while reframing it as strength rather than weakness. They entered the lounge, finding it nearly empty as most delegates were engaged in urgent consultations. Elena ordered drinks suitable for their respective biologies from an automated service pod. "What truly interests me," Zorix said as they settled at a quiet table, "is that your warning was simultaneously a peace offering. You showed teeth while extending a hand." Elena smiled at the apt description. "Humans have a saying, speak softly, but carry a big stick. Sometimes you need to show the stick to avoid using it." Zorix's translator struggled briefly with the idiom before he nodded, understanding. "I've studied human conflict resolution patterns for decades, yet you still surprise me." "That's our specialty," Elena said, taking a sip of her drink. Their conversation was interrupted as Admiral Kroll entered the lounge, his massive frame requiring him to duck slightly through the doorway. He spotted them and approached with purposeful strides. "Admiral," Elena greeted him. "Care to join us?" The Dravan considered for a moment before giving a curt nod and lowering himself into a reinforced seat designed for larger species. "The collective is in disarray," he stated without preamble. "My sources indicate their unified consciousness is experiencing unprecedented fragmentation." Elena raised an eyebrow. "Meaning?" "Individual collective members are expressing divergent opinions," Kroll explained. "Some maintain aggressive postures. Others advocate retreat. Many question the wisdom of their leaders' actions." Zorix's skin pulsed with surprise. "That's unprecedented. The collective's neural synchronization has been absolute for millennia." "Until today," Kroll rumbled. "It seems your speech affected them more deeply than anticipated. Human." Elena considered this information carefully. A fractured collective could be more dangerous, not less. If their leadership feels control slipping, they might take drastic action to reassert authority. "Agreed," Kroll said. "Which is why the Dravan Empire offers escort vessels for all summit participants." His vertical pupils fixed on Elena. "Particularly for you, Ambassador Hart." The offer was significant. Dravan military vessels were among the most formidable in known space, their technology refined through millennia of warrior culture. "Thank you, Admiral," Elena said sincerely. "Earth accepts your generous offer." Kroll gave a grunt of acknowledgement. "Your tactics today were worthy of respect. Had you been born Dravan, you would have earned battle scars of honor." Coming from him, this was extraordinary praise. Elena inclined her head in the formal Dravan gesture of warrior acknowledgement. "There is one more matter," Kroll added, his tone shifting to something almost hesitant, unusual for his species. "During the two-day summit, the Dravan delegation offers assistance with your planetary stewardship councils." Elena's surprise must have shown on her face, because Kroll continued gruffly. We understand frontier worlds, the challenges of hostile environments, resource scarcity, external threats. We can contribute expertise your bureaucrats lack. That's unexpectedly generous, Admiral. Kroll's scales rippled in what Elena recognized as the Dravan equivalent of a dismissive shrug. Pragmatic, not generous. If these councils fail, war becomes more likely. War disrupts trade. Disrupted trade weakens the empire. Therefore, your success serves our interests. Elena smiled. Of course, purely pragmatic. As their conversation continued, plans for the summit began taking shape. Zorix, recovering his professional composure, offered to co-chair a new cultural exchange directorate designed to address the psychological aspects of cross-species friction. My research suggests that much of the collective's fear stems from fundamental misunderstanding, the Lurani explained, his skin now showing the confident blue-green patterns of academic certainty. They interpret human adaptability as instability because their hive consciousness makes incremental change difficult. Elena nodded thoughtfully. That makes sense. Their entire species makes decisions as a single entity. The concept of billions of individuals making separate choices must seem like chaos incarnate. The next 36 hours passed in a whirlwind of preparation. Elena barely slept, moving between strategy sessions with Earth's government, negotiations with concerned species, and planning meetings for the summit itself. By the time the summit convened, the forum had transformed. The Crystal Amphitheater now featured hundreds of smaller discussion pods where species with specific concerns could engage directly with human representatives. Holographic displays showed real-time data on human expansion patterns, resource utilization, and ecological impacts across settled worlds. The collective, true to their agreement, had publicly released information about their secret weapons platforms. Concord inspection teams confirmed what many had suspected. The displayed armaments had been largely for show, with many systems non-functional or dramatically less powerful than they appeared. It had been a calculated bluff, though still concerning given the collective's historical commitment to pacifism. As the summit's first day progressed, Elena moved from discussion to discussion, addressing fears, offering compromises, and repeatedly demonstrating humanity's willingness to adapt without surrendering its fundamental nature. We don't ask the Voltar to breathe oxygen, she told one particularly contentious group. We don't ask the Ildari to abandon empathic communication. We don't ask the Dravans to forget their warrior heritage. The Concord thrives because we accept our differences while finding common ground. By evening, progress was evident. Several species that had initially supported the collective's position had shifted to neutrality or even cautious alliance with humanity. The collective itself had agreed to participate in a joint research initiative examining the long-term implications of distributed versus centralized development models. As the forum's lighting dimmed to simulate night, Elena found herself once again in the quiet lounge with Zorix. The Lurani looked exhausted, but satisfied, his skin showing the deep blue patterns of accomplishment. Your cultural exchange directorate is already making an impact, Elena noted, raising her glass in a toast. 3 species have requested permanent xenopsychology advisors for their colonies. Zorix's mouthparts formed the Lurani equivalent of a smile. Progress. Though I fear I'm developing what humans call an ulcer from all this cross-species tension. Elena laughed. Xenopsychology-induced ulcers? Maybe you should write a paper. To her delight, Zorix laughed too, a chittering sound rarely heard from the normally reserved Lurani. Perhaps I shall. The physiological impact of diplomatic crisis, a case study in galactic brinkmanship. Their moment of levity was interrupted as Captain Rourke entered, his expression serious. Madam Ambassador, we've received an unusual request. The collective wishes to speak with you, privately. Elena exchanged a glance with Zorix, whose skin immediately showed caution patterns. How privately? She asked. Just you and their primary speaker, Rourke replied. In the forum's central garden. They've agreed to security scans and defensive protocols. Elena considered for a moment. Tell them I accept. Standard security measures, plus Admiral Kroll's personal guards if he's willing. After Rourke departed to make arrangements, Zorix's skin pulsed with concern. This could be an opportunity, or a trap. I don't think they're planning assassination, Elena said calmly. That would only prove everything I said about human persistence. No. I think they want something else. An hour later, Elena stood in the forum's central garden, a magnificent space where plants from hundreds of worlds grew in carefully maintained environmental bubbles. The air was rich with exotic scents, and bioluminescent flowers provided gentle illumination along winding paths. The collective speaker waited at the garden center, its membranous skin glowing softly in the dim light. Around the perimeter, security personnel, both human and Dravan, maintained discreet but vigilant watch. Ambassador Hart, the collective greeted her, its harmonious voice quieter than in formal sessions. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. Elena nodded. I'm listening. The collective's bioluminescence shifted to patterns she hadn't seen before, something almost like uncertainty. Our declaration was premature, based on incomplete analysis. I'm glad you recognize that, Elena said carefully. Though I'm curious why you felt a private meeting was necessary to tell me so. The speaker's membrane rippled. Because our error was more fundamental than tactical miscalculation. We failed to understand humanity on a basic level. It paused. We still do not fully understand you. This troubles us deeply. Elena sensed genuine distress in the entity before her. Understanding across species boundaries is never easy. That's why we build relationships over time. Time, the collective echoed. Yes, we perceived human expansion as threatening because it operates on timescales we find unsettling. You make decisions in moments that we would contemplate for years. Different cognitive architectures, Elena acknowledged. Your consciousness spans millions of bodies. Consensus takes time. The collective pulsed with what seemed like relief at being understood. Precisely. And yet, despite your fragmented consciousness, you achieved something we thought impossible. Which is? Unity, without uniformity. The collective's voice carried a note of wonder. Your laughter, in that moment of crisis, was incomprehensible to us. Yet it proved more effective than any weapon. Elena smiled slightly. Laughter often comes from recognizing absurdity. The idea that you could eliminate human unpredictability through force was fundamentally absurd. You would have had to eliminate every last human to achieve your goal. Yes, the collective acknowledged. We see that now, and it leads us to a difficult realization. Which is? That perhaps we have been wrong about chaos itself. The collective's bioluminescence shifted to patterns suggesting deep thought. Our evolutionary path led us to perfect synchronization. Millions of bodies, one mind, absolute internal order. We assumed this pattern represented the pinnacle of development. Elena nodded understanding. While we evolved through competition, cooperation, conflict, and countless different approaches existing simultaneously. Yes, and your path produced results we cannot ignore. The speaker gestured to the garden around them. This very space exemplifies the principle. Hundreds of different life forms, each following its own evolutionary path, creating something more beautiful than any single species could achieve alone. This was remarkable insight from a species that had, just days ago, been prepared to wage war over fear of difference. What are you proposing? Elena asked directly. A more fundamental partnership, the collective replied. Beyond the summit's technical agreements, we wish to establish direct cognitive exchange protocols with human consciousness researchers. We wish to learn how you maintain coherence amid such diversity. The request was unprecedented. The collective had always been secretive about its internal cognitive processes, considering them sacred and inviolable. That would be a significant step, Elena said carefully. One that would require extensive discussion with Earth and human colonies. Of course, the collective acknowledged. But we wish to propose it directly, as a demonstration of our commitment to genuine understanding rather than mere tolerance. Elena considered the implications. I will convey your proposal with my strongest support, and I would suggest including other species in this exchange as well. The Lurani's expertise in xenopsychology would be particularly valuable. The collective pulsed with agreement. Yes, this seems appropriate. Diversity in approach, even to understanding diversity itself. As they concluded their discussion, Elena felt a sense of cautious optimism. The crisis wasn't fully resolved. Genuine concerns about human expansion and technological development remained. But the fundamental shift in the collective's position suggested a path forward that strengthened rather than weakened the conquered. The summit's second day brought formal agreements. The collective publicly withdrew its war declaration, acknowledging substantial reassessment of fundamental assumptions regarding developmental diversity. In exchange, humanity pledged new protocols for expansion notification, ecological impact assessment, and technological safety testing. The newly formed planetary stewardship councils would include representatives from concerned species, while the Cultural Exchange Directorate would facilitate deeper understanding across cognitive architectures. As the agreements were formalized in the Crystal Amphitheater, Elena stood with Zorix and Admiral Kroll, watching delegates from across the galaxy affirm their commitment to continued peace. 1,002 years, Zorix murmured, his skin showing satisfaction patterns. The accord endures. Admiral Kroll gave a rumbling grunt. For now, though I suspect human unpredictability will test it again before long. Elena smiled. Probably. But that's rather the point, isn't it? Peace isn't valuable because it's easy. It's valuable precisely because it requires constant effort, adaptation, and renewal. The Admiral's vertical pupils narrowed thoughtfully. A warrior's perspective on peace. Perhaps humans are not so incomprehensible after all. As the formal ceremony concluded, the forum's crystal dome retracted, revealing Aloria's twin moons rising in the evening sky. Celebrations spread throughout the capital as news of the averted conflict reached citizens of all species. Late into the night, Elena and Zorix found themselves on an observation deck, watching fireworks illuminate the city below. Vibrant explosions of color and light designed to be appreciated by the sensory organs of dozens of different species. You know what the collective never understood about human laughter? Elena said, sipping a celebratory drink. Zorix's skin showed curiosity patterns. What? It's not just recognition of absurdity. It's also relief, hope, sometimes even defiance. She gazed at the spectacular display below. We laugh because the alternative is fear or despair. The Lurani considered this. A pressure release for emotional tension. Fascinating. After a moment, his mouth parts formed their version of a smile. Perhaps I should try it more often. It might help with those xenopsychology-induced ulcers. Elena laughed, and after a moment of concentration, Zorix produced his chittering approximation of laughter as well. From the observation deck, they could see not only the celebrations below, but also the stars above. In orbit around Eloria Prime, a dozen human-built research stations continued their work, beaming exploratory signals farther into uncharted space, seeking new life, new civilizations, new challenges to overcome. Elena thought of what she'd told the collective in the garden. Unity without uniformity. It wasn't always easy. It wasn't always elegant. But it was, perhaps, the only way forward for a galaxy of such incredible diversity. As Eloria's twin moons climbed higher, casting their silver light across the crystalline city, Elena raised her glass in a silent toast to chaos and order, to conflict and resolution, to laughter in the face of war, to 1,002 years of peace, and however many more they could manage, one crisis at a time. And somewhere far beyond conquered space, new stars burned, new worlds formed, and new questions waited, glorious chaos marching ever onward into the infinite night.